Professor Loeb wasn't finished. He went on to talk about a Manhattan-sized interstellar object. He's been on the show talking about it a lot. It's called 3I Atlas. It's currently making its way through our solar system, and we've been tracking its progress very closely, especially because Professor Loeb suspects that it might actually be alien technology scoping us out. And for those who like a side order of conspiracy theory with their servings of UFOs, he claims, Avi Loeb does, that NASA is keeping critical evidence about 3I Atlas away from public view. Professor Avi Loeb joins me now. What's NASA potentially hiding about 3I Atlas?
Well, on October 2nd, the 3I Atlas came closest to Mars, within 30 million kilometers. And the high-res camera on board the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter took several images of it. These are the highest resolution images we have. 3 times better in spatial resolution, about 30 kilometers per pixel, compared to the previous best image, which was the Hubble Space Telescope image. And that was a day after the government shutdown took over NASA, and we haven't gotten the data. And my point is that the politics of the day should not sabotage science. They have the data. They should share it with scientists. They can wait with any press release. But for the scientists to analyze the data, that would serve an important purpose of helping us design the future observations of this object. I should also say that the news yesterday was that this object came closest to the sun. And it received a huge amount of heat from the sun. And the latest report indicates that it became extremely bright, much more than expected for familiar comets.
What does that tell you?
Well, that is not the most unusual fact. It actually is bluer than the sun. And a blue color usually indicates very high temperatures if the light is emitted by some hot surface. But the sun is 5,800 degrees Kelvin above absolute zero, and it's very difficult to keep a surface hotter than that. In fact, an object at the distance of 3I Atlas from the sun could only be 20 times cooler than the sun, so it should be redder, and any dust.
But so what does that mean, Avi? What does that mean if it's hotter than the sun?
We have another anomaly. The object is bluer than the sun, which we don't fully understand. And as of a few hours ago, the first hint for a non-gravitational acceleration, meaning something is affecting its trajectory beyond gravity, was indicated. And so what I'm telling you is that there are new facts about this object that make it even more interesting than it was before. You know, before we knew it moves in the plane of the planets with a very small likelihood. Then we realized that it's very massive, about 1 million times more massive than the first interstellar object, Oumuamua. And then there was nickel with very little iron detected around it, the way we find in industrial production of nickel alloys. And then there was a jet from it towards the sun that was also anomalous. And then there was polarization from it that was never seen before for comets. So there are all these indications.
Bottom line, there's a lot that is making you continue to be very intrigued, a lot about this thing that makes it look like it might be something not quite natural, but we don't know yet. Avi Loeb, come back once we get that NASA image. And also, I'd love to hear more from you about why you think maybe we all originated on Mars, but we'll leave that to another night. Avi Loeb, great to have you on. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.
Joining us now live is our good friend, Professor Avi Loeb. Avi, always appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having me.
So first, can you explain for those who haven't been tracking 3I Atlas as closely what it is, what it's doing, and why we need to be paying attention to this? I mean, are aliens spying on us?
Well, this is the third object from outside the solar system that was spotted on July 1st, 2025. And it was anomalous in many ways, one of which is its size. It's bigger than 5 kilometers in diameter, comparable to a major city. And in addition, it follows a path that is aligned with the ecliptic plane of the planets around the sun. And it had additional anomalies, altogether 10 of them. And we would like to get as much data as possible to figure out the nature of this object. It was shedding nickel with very little iron, for example, and the only place we find it is in industrial production of nickel alloys. So is it technological? Was the trajectory designed by some intelligence? And of course, the best way to find out is to take a high-resolution image of it. And the best image was taken on October 2nd by the HiRISE camera on board the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter. And unfortunately, the argument is because of the government shutdown, this data was never released. This is quite surprising because the principal investigator of HiRISE is a professor at the University of Arizona. He's not a NASA employee. And moreover, just a couple of days ago, Kim Kardashian asked a question about 3I Atlas and directed it to the acting administrator of NASA, Sean Duffy, and he immediately tweeted a reply in which he explained 3I Atlas and so forth. But on the same day, Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna sent a letter to Sean Duffy asking NASA to release this data that is being held for over a month. No response so far. When I approached the principal investigator of HiRISE, no response. It doesn't make much sense for the politics of the day to sabotage the progress of science. We need this data in order to plan future observations of the object.
I hear it, and I did not expect that the clear path forward would be getting Kim Kardashian to maybe ask this question on your behalf and on our behalf to try to get some answers.
My complaint is more about the fact that there was an immediate response to her, but no response.
I hear that. I mean, what do you think we will learn from NASA's data? And it sounds like you're saying, do you believe that the government shutdown is a convenient cover for why this information is not being made public?
No, I don't think there is anything indicating extraterrestrial intelligence in this data. I think it's a result of terrestrial stupidity that using politics to just prevent the flow of information or the sharing of information among scientists. That should not be delayed by any political agenda. The point is that we don't need any press release. It's just sharing data, which under normal circumstances is obligated by law within about a day and a half because NASA is being funded by taxpayers' money.
Avi Loeb joins us now. He's the head of the Galileo Project, director of Harvard University's Institute for Theory and Computation, and author of the book Extraterrestrial. Okay, Avi, we've had you on so many times. I always love talking to you about this. Any more of a clue as to what this thing is or is not?
Well, we are still waiting for NASA to release an image, the highest resolution image with 30 kilometers per pixel that was obtained on October 2nd by the HiRISE camera on board the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter. We are seeing the anti-tail that was pointed towards the sun, opposite to what we see in the context of comets, and now changing direction and going away from the sun, the more conventional way. We don't know what the reason is. And as you pointed out, we see some unusual composition of nickel with very little iron that we only find in industrially produced nickel alloys. And the size of the object, you know, it's at least 1,000 times more massive than the previous interstellar objects we've seen. And the question is, why is such a giant object delivered to our inner solar system when we saw only small ones before? And it comes along the plane of the planets around the sun, and it comes close to Mars, Jupiter, and we just have to monitor it. And gladly, yesterday, the International Asteroid Warning organization network decided to have a campaign starting on November 27th until January 27th, where it will coordinate using all the assets we have on Earth and in space to get as much data as possible about this mysterious object. And, you know, that would be a great blessing, irrespective of whether it's natural or technological. But if it happens to do a maneuver when it comes close to the sun, the way spacecraft do, using gravitational assist from the sun, you know, that would definitely affect the markets, the financial markets, and politics on Earth.
Why? Because everybody will suddenly feel like, uh-oh, we've just been invaded? I mean, because if it doesn't maneuver around the sun, that would show it's not a natural object, right?
Yes, it will be a technological signature, but it could be also a mothership that releases mini probes that maneuver. And so I tasked the research team of the Galileo project. We have 3 observatories monitoring the sky to check for any unusual activity in the coming months. We have also orbiters around Mars that could check for unusual activity there. So I think we should keep our eyes open and not assume anything, because it could be a black swan event where something that looks natural at first ends up being like a Trojan horse, and because the implications are so huge for humanity, we must consider it seriously.
And you just put an article at it, like literally just posted a few minutes ago. I wonder, the last line of this article you write, 3i Atlas will get closest to Earth on December 19th, 2025. Here's hoping that by then we will know more about our dating partner in this interstellar blind date. Are you the only person? Are there other people who are sharing your concern about what this object is and about the possibility that it could be something that is not natural?
Oh, definitely. There is a huge amount of interest. I was just invited to Washington, D.C. to speak with congresspeople and others. I'm speaking with Joe Rogan in a couple of days on his podcast. There is a lot of people who really want to learn more about it. There is also misinformation, of course, but the beauty of science is that we should be guided by data. And this is an excellent opportunity also to attract young people to science, because it's exciting. And the implications of the findings that we will have in the coming months could be very significant, and we should do the same for future objects of this nature.
Yeah, Joe Rogan.
Joe Rogan's
really big into space,
I should say one thing about blind dates. You often assume that the partner, the dating partner, would be very friendly, but you have to worry about the serial killers as well.
Okay, Avi Loeb with a lot of warnings for everybody tonight. Avi, you're one of my favorite guests. Come back soon once we know more. You're always welcome here.
Yeah, when I first read this story, I was like, wait a minute, what are you saying there? Look out for falling space junk. Space trackers say Elon Musk's Starlink satellites are producing so much orbital garbage that it's now starting to fall back to Earth. An astronomer with Harvard Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics says an average of, get this, 1 to 2 satellites are deorbiting every single day. Wow. Joining me now is Director for the Institute for Theory and Computation at Harvard University, Avi Loeb. Dr. Loeb, you hear about satellites crashing down from the sky. Needless to say, that gives one pause.
Yes, it does. And thank you for having me. The Earth is big, and 71% is covered by oceans. So the chance right now of getting killed by a fragment from a satellite reentry is not large, but the Federal Aviation Agency estimated that within a decade, this chance of getting hit by a fragment rises to 61% per year for a single person to be endangered. And that's a real concern. Just this year, SpaceX launched 2,000 satellites, and altogether the population will increase very soon to tens of thousands, and that would be a risk. Not to speak about the possible pollution of the atmosphere with the evaporation of all these metals into it.
Dr. Loeb, so many questions around this. Why are they crashing back down to Earth? Is it something about the satellites that loses the ability to continue to propel or whatever and resist maybe the gravity of Earth? I'm not a scientist. I'm just throwing that out there. I don't know.
Well, this was planned. It's not unexpected. The lifespan of these satellites is about 5 years for Starlink. And so the idea was to deorbit them and let them burn in the atmosphere. And indeed, they're small enough for most of them to burn up and not reach the ground. However, some fragments can do so and reach the ground. And the concern is that the ozone layer may be damaged as they evaporate, but also there is some potential risk. And I think lawyers will start getting involved if there is damage to property or to human lives. So altogether, this is a new threat from the sky.
Sure.
We're not talking just about rocks falling from the sky in the form of meteors, but also human-made debris. And in addition to that, there is the problem to astronomers that these are city lights in the sky during the nighttime. And in fact, there is the Rubin Observatory in Chile monitoring the southern sky every 4 nights. And there are lots of streaks from these existing satellites that prevent astronomers from looking at the sky without interruption.
And getting accurate information. Dr. Loeb, we just threw up a chart there with some numbers about the number of objects that are actually in the sky. The report says there are like 12,000 satellites in orbit. 8,000 of them are Elon Musk's Starlinks. Should we be concerned about these objects possibly not even so much making it back to Earth, but even just, like you said, the pollution that they cause?
Well, yeah, the biggest issue is that once you have too many of them out there, they might collide by chance with one another. It's not such a big problem for low Earth orbits, but as you go higher, it becomes a real danger because there is a point where a large enough population starts a cascade where some satellites collide and then break up, and then those fragments break up other satellites. And that would be a real problem for anything that we fly, to elevations of hundreds of miles.
Dr. Avi Loeb with a sober warning this morning to look up, be aware, and just know that 70% of the Earth is covered with water, and we're probably going to be just fine. Dr. Loeb, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Because it has anomalies. It moves on a trajectory that is very unusual. It is aligned with the orbit of the Earth around the sun, and it will get extremely close to the inner planets like for example, Jupiter, Mars, or Venus. It will arrive closest to the sun when the Earth is on the opposite side, so we won't be able to look at it. And that's the point where a spacecraft could make a maneuver to slow down. And it's coming from the direction of the Milky Way galaxy, the center of the Milky Way galaxy, where the sky is very crowded with stars. So that's why it took a while to notice it. And altogether, the chance of this trajectory is less than 0.2% to be aligned with the orbit of the Earth around the sun, less than 1 part in 20,000 to arrive so close to the other planets. And one wonders, could it be a design trajectory? And I'm not saying that we know, but I'm saying that we need to collect more data to figure out the nature of this object. And if it turns out to be a comet, if it's surrounded by a beautiful cometary tail that is glowing in the sunlight as it gets closer to the sun, so be it. But from now on, the Rubin Observatory in Chile will discover a new interstellar object every few months. And my point is, we should check whether any of these objects might be technological in origin, because it's a security risk to Earth.
Right. How do you check that? So it's interesting you mentioned about the trail that might indicate it's a comet. What would be the signs that it's not a comet?
Well, so I suggest first establishing a scale of risk from interstellar objects, similar to the Richter scale for the risk from earthquakes. A 0 would mean that we identify a beautiful tail, and it looks just like a regular comet. We can infer the composition of the tail. It's similar to comets. A 10 would mean that the object maneuvers in ways that cannot be explained by the force of gravity, that there must be an engine in it, or it has an unusual shape, or it has artificial lights. And there should be an organization that decides whether an incoming object could be a risk, because we talk a lot about existential risks from artificial intelligence, from climate change, from an asteroid that may impact the Earth, but we don't talk at all about the possibility of alien tech. And I think we should take it into consideration because we sent out spacecraft that would leave the solar system.
Well, let's talk about that for a second. So it is estimated to be about 12 miles long, okay? You, and correct me if I'm wrong, you want to use NASA's Juno spacecraft to intercept the path of that. It has instruments that could study it. It could change the trajectory of the orbit. Can you explain a little bit more how this would work?
Yeah, so we should take advantage of the fact that it comes so close to Jupiter. It's quite amazing. If you look at Jupiter's orbit, it just gets to the point where 3I Atlas will be on the 16th of March, 2026. And I calculated that if we give a small kick to Juno of 2.6 kilometers per second, just around the time when NASA was thinking of just sinking it into Jupiter because it's the end of the mission. And I'm saying instead of letting it dive into Jupiter, just kick it out away from Jupiter, then with the right orientation, it will actually intercept the path of 3I Atlas. And it's an amazing opportunity for us to learn much more about this object. Because we can't launch any rocket from Earth that would intercept this object. It's moving too fast relative to Earth in the opposite direction of the motion of Earth around the sun.
You wrote that if this 3I Atlas is a technological artifact, it could be evidence of the dark forest hypothesis. What is that?
That's one of the solutions to Fermi's paradox, which is the question, where is everybody? And of course, it's possible that aliens are out there, but they are worried about predators, and therefore they are silent, as if they are in a dark forest. And if they see a civilization like ours, a young technological civilization that gets more powerful over time, and they are listening to us, they might send a probe or a spacecraft on a reconnaissance mission or with some other goals. And we should be ready for that. We should monitor the sky and be aware of that potential possibility. And just ignoring it is not intelligent on our behalf.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.